Yeah, I'm recording.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever, depending on whichever part of the world you're all in. And uh, this has been one of our CPCs of the in the new format. As you all must have noticed by now that this, what we like, Wahid and I refer to this as season two of CPC. So, the season two of CPC is most of you would have realized that it's in a more of a group discussion sort of format because the first season was focusing on each individual and their what they had to say. We were focusing on the journeys of each person, but this time around we thought that we would sort of pick up topics which are of common interests because of various reasons, not merely because we are all on the other side of 50, but some of them could be because we are all, as a group, facing certain challenges, which could be to do with age, but it could also be to do with other things, which could be parenting, could be so many other things, our own worldviews, etc., etc. So, typically, most of us would have a lot to share on these topics, but we also thought we would keep a few speakers who would love to speak because they have done probably a little more work or reading or they have engaged with that topic a little more, and the rest of us are always there to give you know our 2 cents and share our experiences. So today's topic, I think, is something which is very, very close and dear to a lot of people because this is something which many of us have had an early start, many of us have had a late start, but nevertheless we are all somewhere in the curve. Jijo and Raj are two people who have been very deeply engaged with the topic of broadly wellness, which will include fitness, nutrition, wellness, sleep, and so many things, mental wellness too, perhaps. So the two of them will definitely speak to us for some time about the topic we have chosen today, we had discussed today. We also have Simi and Bijoy who would love to share their experiences from their own lived experiences as they have seen what they have experienced and share it with us. Shamala is going to specifically address us on women's health, which I think is a very, very important factor for people who are in their 50s. And I think that deserves a special. We probably want to do another one, which is just entirely on women's health, maybe if we think that that would make sense later. But today, Shamla is definitely going to talk about women's health. And the rest of us, like JK, is very much into fitness. So he will give his ideas. All of us, whoever wants to share, the floor will be open for everybody to share this. So, Jiju, I'll request you to start and subsequently we'll request Raj to take over, start off, and then Bijoy, Simi, Shamla will all come in. Thanks.
Gotcha, gotcha. All right. Well, welcome everyone. I definitely want this to be a two-way conversation. So stop me anytime if you have questions or if I'm, saying something that doesn't make sense. And, some of this we can always connect after, right? I can share the information or deeper links and things like that. So today, what I wanted, I do have a stop at the bottom of the hour, after which I listen, but I can't be on video. But so I wanted to kick off with a couple of anecdotes from and experiences that I went through in my life, getting to where I am now, how I got started, what are some of the learnings, because we all, including me, uh, have failed and learned from those failures, right? So, hang on a second. Yeah, okay. So for me, the foundations of this wellness journey were laid very early on in my life with my interest in reading. And I was a ravenous reader. And one of the key things that stands out for me is my uncle. and my aunt, one of my birthdays, they gave me a thesaurus as a gift. So I had no idea what a thesaurus was at that point, but seeing how I was so interested in reading, it was very pivotal to get that and get introduced to that concept. And then I remember reading the entire, bookend to bookend of the Bible, and when you get into new classes, and you get those reading comprehension books, the thick ones, right? I would go right through finish all of it before the classes even began back in school. So reading was a thing I loved to do. And then layered on top of that, uh, I got to spend more time with my mom. She was in the healthcare area. She was a chief of nursing at the hospital where I grew up in Kuwait when we were growing up in Kuwait. So she used to take me into the hospital. Now she has to work all day, right? So what am I going to do? So she parked me in the library of the hospital where incoming nurses are trained. So I had the entire compendium of medical uh, textbooks and magazines and things like that to read all day. So that kind of piqued my interest in medicine and where things are. In fact, I remember when I was in my 11th and 12th grade in Chennai, Avdi, I was had my mom send me books on genetics and DNA and things like that. So I remember sitting, while my family went shopping for saris at Nalli's and things like that, I would sit in the van and read those books. It was interesting because for me, it was I was always curious about how stuff works, whether it is the human body or physics or whatever. Or even computers. I opened it up to see how it works. Right now, was I able to put it back all the time? No. Sometimes I couldn't put it back. Whatever. Right. But you learn. So that was kind of the baseline. There was always an interest in the medicine, and my reading kept me up to date with the fields that I'm interested in. Right, coming into that with that foundation, right, around I would say 2010 or so, I started. I would get my blood work done, right? So I started noticing that the some of the key indicators like the cholesterol and the glucose and these kind of things started to tick upwards, right? And my doctor started pointing out the pattern. He said, Jojo, have you noticed this over these years? It's been ticking up. Now, knowing that my dad and mom had, heart issues, and at least one of them had diabetes, I figured out if I do nothing, right, I know where this is going to end up. Right. We'll all chalk it up to, or at least I would chalk it up to family history. Yeah, I can't do anything about it. So I figured, let's see if we can do something about this, right? Early on. So then I started off with looking at my diet, right? What am I doing all day? And like introspecting and looking up, stepping back and looking at what I do, it was kind of clear that I would wake up, there was breakfast early in the morning before I went to work, get to work, somebody or the other would have snacks, right? Whether it's donuts or whether it is pastries or whatever it is, there would be something or the other. So that, and then lunch, go out with the team at work. There would be a sumptuous lunch. And then there's of course, tea, coffee, something like that, hang out. The typical water cooler time is towards the end of the day, right? When everybody comes around for a chai or whatever, chalo, that goes. And because you're standing there and talking, you don't pay attention to what you're eating, right? You keep munching, and many of these companies have break rooms and things like that stocked with stuff, right? So that was that, and then get home, and then there's a dinner, right? So I was looking at that, and I was like, wow, I'm eating throughout the day. Do I have to have breakfast? Right? Am I having it because it's a rule? And I know when I mentioned to my mom back then that I'm not having breakfast, she was like, no, 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 that's the most important meal of the day. How can you miss it, right? That's what we have all been taught. But I just decided, I'm not hungry. I'm not going to eat now until I'm hungry. And so that was the first. I started cutting out meals which were just there because I learned it growing up, right? The snack when I reached the office, not required. Uh, early lunch maybe that was okay, a little bit early. That was when I was feeling hungry. Then over time, I examined the evening chai and what I eat at that time, right? So that journey continued until I nailed it down to lunch, snack, and then the dinner. Now, this is where reading and what I would call bro science comes in, right? This is, you look at YouTube, you look at articles that get pushed to you, on news media, etc., and you start to see all these different wisdoms, right? It's like you have to hit 2 grams per kilogram of your body weight of protein. You have to have this kind of oatmeal for breakfast, and if you have this other kind of grain versus another, it's prebiotic, probiotic. Like there's this influencer push, right? And so I fell into that trap myself. And as I was following some of these influencers, it was like, oh man, I got to stuff my body up to reach a certain amount of fat. I need to stuff my body with this much protein. I realized that, you know what? And I was feeling pretty bad and my body was feeling like I would throw up or something like that, like because I was eating so much fat and so much protein, right? The body just wasn't able to digest. And at some point, the body is just going to throw it up. So that was a journey where I was stuffing myself with just to hit the numbers, right? The protein numbers that somebody else was saying I should hit, or the fats and so on. And so going down that path, of course, I was putting on weight and things like that. I was like, that's when it dawned on me that, you know what? Uh, so that's when I stumbled across the Guide to Fasting it's written by this doctor called Jason Fung. So I started reading about that, and I learned a lot about how the body uses food. I learned about how the insulin and glucose resistance, glucose not resistance to glucose, but high amount of glucose, insulin resistance are the keys to. Yeah, I'll put it. I'll share it. Oh, you shared it. Okay. The
No,
insulin
I was asking you to
resist.
share it. Yeah.
Oh, sorry. I wasn't looking at chat. Uh, he's a nephrologist by training, but he has written several books on cancer is one. the diabetes is another, obesity is another, fasting is what I started looking at. But the concept that I took away from all of that was stop following the bro signs, right? And including being careful on cheat days, because this notion of fasting and then having a cheat day, I have a story there as well, learning from myself, but I'll hold that. I'll come back to it. The simple takeaway after all of this was that dawned on me is that at the end of the day, in order to lose weight or maintain weight, it has to be a balance between what calories and food I put into the body and how much I expend in a given day. Expend, EXPEND, or spend in a given day. So, just like everything else in life, if I put more into my body than I expend, then obviously it's going to accumulate. The body is not stupid. It's going to hold on to the food. That's what we have evolved to do, right? We're going to hold on to whatever extra calories are there for a rainy day, right? Or for a famine of the future. So, adjusting that. So if I want to lose weight, then I have to consume less than I expend. If I want to maintain my weight, I have to be roughly equal. And if I have to put on weight, obviously I have to consume more than I expend, right? Simple. That's the simplest takeaway. And the other thing is to experiment, right, with your body. You can try different things, one change at a time, right? And see how your body reacts. I give it a week, right, of trying something new, and then see how my. There was a time recently where I got onto this to try increasing the amount of vegetable protein in my diet, right, in my meals. But I was having something like 400 grams of beans every day in my diet. And then I figured, you know what, my body feels too full all the time because it takes a long time to digest those beans and lentils, right? So I said, no, I cannot handle that. My body cannot handle it. So I have to go back to, a couple of times a week, right? So these kind of experiments, you can do on your own body. I'm not talking about putting chemicals in. I'm talking about with food, right? So that's one aspect. The other thing coming out of my experience with the diet was, of modifying my diet, was the cheat days. So, again, following bro signs and what you see on YouTube, etc. Uh, I went down the path of, oh, cheat days, eat anything you want, right? It's totally okay. I used to have a cheat day on Saturdays, right? My wife and I. So go, and it used to be binge eating on Saturday, right? For that, eat anything you want, pizza, dessert, whatever, right? Then I started noticing that those evenings, I would have cramps all over my body. Okay. I wear the fitness tracker, so it would tell me, hey, some of them, like the Apple Watch, tracks your vitals during sleep. So I would notice that I was feeling hotter. My body was feeling hotter. My heart rate was higher on after those cheat days, right? So that's where. And what I also figured out is my mind has this thing called food noise. As it gets closer to Saturday, my mind is figuring out, okay, what desserts am I going to have? Like, what am I going to binge on, right? So there was this constant thought at the back of the mind, right? Because you're not having it for long periods of time. So it turned out looking deeper into this, it's basically a combination of dopamine addiction. Dopamine is causing, that addiction. And then the second is because so much, simple carbs like breads and pizza, desserts are coming into the body on that day, right? The glucose shoots right through the roof, right? And so that is all these side effects is what I'm feeling with the cramps and things like that. So yeah, so I've gone down that path. Right now, I'm using techniques to get out of that addiction, right? So all this is to say not to scare anyone. It's more to say everyone is human. We have to go through this and learn because each person is individually different. There's no one size fits all, right? Uh, where I live, how my work schedule is, what foods I prefer, all of that goes into what I like to eat, right? So there's no one size fits all diet, so to speak. And on the exercise front, right, I started off again alongside these diets. I started off with body weight exercises first, started with 10 minutes of running. That's all I could do, right? I would be huffing and puffing after 10 minutes. But the key thing was every day, show up and do those 10 minutes, right? So, like picking something I could do on my worst days, right? As opposed to what I can do on my best days. Because on the worst days, when I have a slight cold or something, I still can do the 10 minutes of running, right? I still can do a few body weight exercises, right? Now, then building on that, right? Once my body adjusts to running at 10, then go to 20, then go to 30, right? And then increase the frequency, then add weights, right? You build on that as your body keeps going and you establish a new bar. Sorry.
So I guess, Joe, I think the question is still like, I mean, there are certain drivers in the when it comes down to it, right? There are key drivers that you're trying to like pull levers on. Nutrition is one thing, exercise is another, your mental health is another, the the relationships you have are another, the supplements you take, the sleep you get. Um, I mean, if the goal is like basically, I mean, for me, it's like, can you have a long health span is kind of like the longer term overarching objective, right? I mean, you want to be a health, like my father-in-law is a good example. He ran a marathon last year and he's like 76-year-old man. Uh, I I mean, to be able to do that, uh, and have that level of like, you know, physical, mental equity and, just, happiness with your life. I mean, like in the end of it is kind of the goal. And the question is, what are you talking about as different levers of like, if that's where you want to be, you want to be an 80-year-old with, you know, the physical, mental, and wellness aspects of it, what do you need to do now and going forward to kind of get there? And to me, that's kind of
Yeah.
the underlying journey that, we're all kind of trying to figure out what the right way to do for each of us is.
Right. Yeah. So given the 30 minutes today that I had, my focus was on diet and exercise, the two biggest pieces that made a difference for me. The sleep, 100% agreed, sleep. And I touched a little bit on the mental health with the addiction aspect, but that four or five things like sleep, mental health, uh, you know, low tension, make life simple kind of thing, right? Sleep. think I already mentioned diet and exercise, right? I'm sure others will talk about today sleep and the other areas, but yeah, you're 100% right. It's the holistic. It is diet, exercise, pay attention to your sleep, sleep and mental health. Those are
Relation-
kind of,
Relationships
yeah.
matter a lot too.
Yeah, it all goes into, I stop jumping in front of every train that comes up in the relationship. Like some of it, just let it go, right? It's not, you look at relationships in a long-term view, like where do I want this relationship to be in 10 years? That mental model trivializes a lot of the arguments, right? It's like, it's not worth it.
And I mean,
Uh,
I mean, this group is also about relationships. It's not just, your personal relationships. I mean, like,
Mhm.
as you grow older, I mean, having a supportive, community that's around you it's very healthy. It creates a lot of happiness in that. I mean, if you look at the Harvard study, I mean, it's been going on since like 1945, I think. And the
mhm.
number one thing they're finding for happiness is that you have supportive relationships, you have a group of
Yeah.
supportive friends. That's the
So I
that is
hope, Vijay, you'll be able to talk a little more about that.
yeah.
Perhaps, shed light on that aspect of health and wellness.
Jija,
You,
before you leave, a key aspect that you said is that you have to create a balance and be self-aware. So how did you actually measure and be self-aware? So that's something that we are all not.
right.
What is a measurement mechanism that how do you get into the discipline of looking at these measures or indicators, and what are these indicators and how do you do that?
Ultimately,
So,
I mean, what I think Jojo was saying earlier, it's a personal it's a personal journey, right? We're all kind of like looking at and saying, where am I? Where do I want to be? And I'm making these changes and saying, are these changes positive or negative to me? And it's having that self-awareness to kind of say, I mean, maybe it's weight gain, maybe you get up in the morning and how you're feeling. Because some of this is like very objective measures, but I mean, several of these are just basically, if, for me, one of the biggest goals is like, I want to get up in the morning, feel
Bijoy,
refreshed.
let me finish because I
Yeah,
got to drop.
yeah,
Let me
go
address the
ahead.
question, and then I'll yield the floor. 100% agree with what you're saying. So Wahid and Manali, your questions, the to close the loop on the measurement, right? Listen to my body kind of measurements because I'm experimenting. How do I know it's working, right? And so body measures, I think I might have shared in one of the chats. I keep track of body metrics, right? Fitness tracker, whether it's Apple Watch or Fitbit, pick your favorite, right? But it captures a lot of information, metrics on the body, right? The annual blood work, it captures a lot of information about the body. Continuous glucose monitor is a game changer. Right now, it is available even without prescription. You can apply it yourself, but it gives you an idea during the day as you consume different kinds of foods, what is happening to the body glucose, right? So you don't have to prick your hand or anything like that. You see it right on your phone. So those kind of metrics measures for the diet side of things, right, is how I keep track of now where I want to be, right, for the amount of cholesterol and things like that, where I want to be with glucose and all these things. There is an ideal range, right? So that's how I track the diet side of things and adjust my content of the diet based on where I want the glucose spikes to happen and so on and so forth. On the exercise front, as we age, I learned to listen to my body rather than bro science after a couple of injuries, right? So I would go through there was a time I would do weightlifting and keep increasing the amount of weight just because I was following a couple of steroid induced bros online, right? So that led to a double hernia. That led to even a little bit of retinal detachment, as the techniques I was using for weightlifting were poor. Like I was not breathing out. After those injuries, and given the age, I started adjusting my workouts and things like that to focus more on what I'm capable of doing at 50 plus, right? I'm not trying to be a 25-year-old, right? I can't do those explosive workouts like a person like that could do. So it has to be very careful movements. But I still do weight training. I want to do it as much as possible. Running, right? Running or cycling, right? To be lighter on the knees, right? I have rheumatoid arthritis in my family, right? And then pushing the heart, right? Bijoy and I, we have had a lot of discussion about pushing your heart and moving it into higher zones for some periods of time. Like I do an hour and a half every week for myself. Like today, Saturday is one of those days where I push my heart to its limit, where I cannot run anymore on the treadmill, right? That limit, but for 30 minutes, right? So those kind of things, and walks in the evening, so on and so forth. So those measures come again from fitness trackers. You can see where your heart rate is. You can see progression of how much weights you're taking. But at this point, it is maintained, right, at 50 plus, as most of us are. I'm personally, I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder or anything like that, right?
Yeah.
That image is gone. I just don't want to injure myself, but stay healthy. Hope that answers the question.
Yes, it does. And I think you also have a bit of a commitment. You are dropping off.
Yeah.
Yes, but you're available for us to ask you anything as the evening progresses.
I'm listening.
Right?
I'm listening. I just can't
Bijoy,
be on video.
I have a quick question. So what is your tip? This is Simi. What is your, thanks for the talk, but what is your typical diet like in a day? Like, do you skip breakfast?
As of now, right now, it is one meal a day, usually around 4 p.m., right? And like I was talking to Monali in the beginning, black coffee during the day, water, lots of water, right? One meal a day. I stay off sugars during the week, the entire week, 6 days. Saturdays, there's a little bit of cheat, but I have my accountability coach to whom I'm accountable for how many pieces of dessert I have, right? So I put limits. It's my daughter. I have to account to her many pieces. Because we are reciprocal. She has an addiction to social media, so she's accountable to me. So I'm breaking her out of Instagram addiction, and she's breaking me out of my dessert addiction, right? So we're working through 4 to 3 now.
That is a great plan.
Diet. So no sugars, mostly proteins, complex carbs like beans and lentils and things like that. I'm 6 days a week. It's usually fish, fatty fish, sardines, mackerel, those kind. That's my source of protein, and healthy fats, avocado, coconut oil, these kind of things.
So eating once a day means you're in a perpetual fasted state, right?
The meal is heavy. Yeah. After about 6-7 hours, yes.
Okay. So your brain is probably working off of more of ketosis than kind of glucose, right? Would you say that? Okay.
Yeah. As a result, I have to educate my doctor about why my cholesterol is very high and things like he panics.
Okay. So do you have sleep issues because you're, I guess you do eat carbohydrates later in the day, right?
Sleep issues.
I'm just curious.
It's only in the one meal, so I don't. It's only complex carbs, so no sugars.
Okay.
No breads, no sugars, none of those things, right? The sleep issues come when on the day of the cheats, right? If I go overboard with the desserts, or if I eat too late. That's true for anybody, right? If you
Yeah.
eat too late,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah.
But I have heard that if you're doing, a low carbohydrate, I think you're doing a mix of that. I don't know where that stands, but um, eat it towards the end of the day because you need a certain amount of carbohydrates to have good sleep. So I was just curious because I've also been put on a very low carb diet. So I was just curious how you manage. But since you only eat once a day, so I guess you have to eat all
Yeah,
that at the same time.
yeah.
Hey,
Cool. So I got to drop.
Yeah. And thank you so much, Jiju. But we will be, asking questions to you as,
No problem.
a little later because we have a few more speakers who would, speak. We're going to have Shyamla next because Shyamla also has some commitment and she will address us next. Shyamla?
Hey y'all.
Yes. Yeah. Hello,
How's
Shyamla.
everybody doing?
All good. Waiting to hear from you.
I don't have any big things to talk about, but I just want to bring up a few things, right? Especially what I have figured out late in my life. Maybe when I turned 20, I didn't care about a thing. It can be as simple as brushing your teeth in the night, right? I'm just curious, how many of you brush your teeth every night? It can be just as simple as that, right? Yes. Now most of us do because we have come across all these issues with our teeth. We are like, oh, we have to brush our teeth now. But I know, like, when I got my braces, maybe I did brush my teeth. I definitely did it when I was younger, and then somewhere in the process, I stopped doing that. I thought it was okay. I don't have to brush my teeth in the night. I did not mean not brush at all, but at least in the night. So things turned out 25, 30, 35, 40. I hit 45, and with every decade I must say, with every 5 years that I was passing, my body kept telling me different things, right? Like I would just feel so tired. I could multitask. I could do multiple things at the same time, but my body started getting slower and slower. And I would keep wondering why, because, last year I was able to do this. Why not now? Things like that. Then I turned 40. I think before I turned 46, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. And that was kind of like a shocker. It was a huge learning experience for me. And the first thing I realized that was impacted was my teeth, right? Because of all the chemos and all the medication I had to take, I had to go back to take care of my teeth because that was the first thing that I figured out needed care. So from then till now, I kind of religiously take care of my teeth, hoping that they don't fall off before I really get older. But that was just a starting thing. However, I think, noticing what your body is, how your body is changing. For women, we do not put ourselves in the spotlight. We always think of family, kids, maybe parents who are overseas. We think about everything else, but we don't think about ourselves. So that is one thing that I feel where we should put ourselves ahead of everything. Now, I just think about myself. Am I happy? Does it make me happy? Is what I first question. I do that for myself. And then I think about anybody else. It might sound very selfish, but I figured out that if that's going to keep me sane mentally and healthy, then I'm just going to do that. I think as far as changes to body, right? Maybe once I hit 40s, I used to have like this brief dizziness spells, and which I would like just think, oh, it's just stress, or it's like I did not sleep well. But I feel that these were perhaps things that I should have um, paid attention to, uh, focused on more. Um, but then I did not. So today I start my day. During treatment, I was heavily into deep breathing and pranayama and all that, which helped me immensely. So after so much of going through this meditation, breathing, and everything, I tried with multiple people, but my only problem was I could not keep focused on one particular program, right? I know I keep posting this in the wellness group, in our CET girls group about, doing yoga. I think that, like Jijo mentioned earlier, right? Consistency is what matters. How much am I able to do is not what is important. If I'm able to get up every morning, spend at least half hour doing whatever I need to, I think that's what matters. So I started that way, and then I also enrolled in rowing. So when I finished chemo, I could not even hold like a knife to cut an apple. I could not even do that. So maybe because of surgeries, maybe because of all the multiple things that happened, my body was extremely weak. So I started off yoga, and then I also started rowing to build my strength. So one is for consistency, one is for strength and stamina. I think that is what these days I just focus on. And then what makes me happy, right? So I've taken care of the health part, consistency, stamina. But then what makes me happy? I figured out traveling makes me happy. So I travel alone, I travel with my girlfriends, I travel with my family, I travel wherever, whenever possible. I know I'm not saving any money for myself for my future, but I'm like, future we can take care of later. Let's just live it out today, right? So I think that is also very important. What makes you happy? We can take care of what makes you healthy, but then also what makes you happy. I, s- I'm kind of checking where I can learn a new language, like for online classes and things like that. Something that will get rid of my brain fog. By now you might have figured out I'm trying to speak, but then I kind of blank out and I don't get the right word I want to use. I'm sure several of you will also be experiencing the same thing, right? You just can't get the right word at the right time. And there's multiple things. I go into the bathroom, to the medical to my closet, and then I forget, did I come here to take my medication or did I come here for something else? So these are all little things. So I feel like, we just have to keep ourselves learning something new that will always keep us on our toes. And I just want to close with one last thing that I really enjoy doing. First thing in the morning is I play Wordle every day. Every day. It is kind of because I forget spellings. It also must be because of the AI that is here today. When you are writing something, it prompts you with spellings, with corrections, like whatever, right? You really don't have to remember spellings. But in my case, when I play Wordle, I'm like, oh, there should be a five-letter word with, so I might get two out of the five right, but to get what is that five-lettered word is a struggle. And I start my day every day with Wordle, and then I go into my yoga with breathing and whatever I do. So basically, I think that is how I started keeping myself. This is for my wellness, right? Am I happy? Am I healthy? And that's all that matters.
Thank you so much, Shyamala,
Yes.
for what you said, and it's so right, isn't it? I mean, um, we generally tend to forget our own comforts in trying to take care of our loved ones, but seldom realizing that you can't take care of your loved ones unless you are healthy yourself, and
So true. So
and
true.
in the right state of mind, and physical and mental state of mind, in order
Yeah.
to be there for your loved ones and your family, right? Whether it
There,
is your
there are, yeah, there is a reason why airlines tell you to put on the
absolutely,
mask for
yeah,
somebody else before you put it on for yourself, right?
absolutely,
It's the same
absolutely.
thing.
Correct, correct. That's true. First, breathe yourself before you put the mask for others, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Shamala. And there will be questions, but we also have three more speakers, so we will
Yes.
have them speak, and then I'm sure we can all take more questions. Raj, are you around? Raj Shekaran Nair, our Iron Man.
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
I totally am unprepared for this. I actually forgot that now you asked me about this.
Mm.
And then I realized.
But do you need prep? I mean,
no, I don't even know. So I didn't quite know what to expect today.
okay.
So yeah, some of you know what I've been into. I've always been into running since I was about 16. That came about from being part of a martial arts class. And then I've just kind of kept up with it almost always. And then as I grew older, I got into other hobbies. Really, what it all has come down to me is being able to find joy in what I do. If any of these activities start feeling like a chore, then it really becomes unsustainable, right? We're not going to do it really. So for me, a lot of the things that I do have just become part of my lifestyle. So I'm not really out there running or doing any of these exercises with the focus of improving my health. Honestly, that's just been a side benefit, fortunately for me. I like being able to say yes to adventures that people suggest. So I've been grateful to be able to say yes to most of them, and that it's a bit of a cyclical thing. So the more I do it, the more I'm able to do other things. Um, so just in a very small nutshell, that's been just the way I've lived my life. When it comes to diet, I wouldn't consider myself necessarily a healthy eater or someone that's actively trying to eat healthy. I turned a vegetarian when I was maybe in second year of college. That was primarily from an animal rights angle. So I've been largely stayed a vegetarian throughout my life since then, with a brief period where I went back to eating fish, mostly as a ways to bring protein into my diet. But at that time, we were also eating out a lot. But since then, over the last 15 years, I've pretty much been living on my own and cooking for myself. So I've been able to control my diet a lot better that way. So I haven't really felt the need to eat anything other than regular, a lot of Indian dishes like kadala curry and stuff like that. It's my go-to when it comes to dinner. And yeah, I just follow normally, and I eat 3 times a day. I do snack a fair amount. People joke about me saying that I mostly run so that I can eat a bag of potato chips in a sitting, which is not entirely untrue. Funny story, my daughter says that my favorite food is jalapeno chips. So she's also not wrong. Anyway, so yeah, from running, I've gone into a lot of other, mostly endurance related sports, but other adventures too, a little bit of climbing, and then also been able to reconnect with music a lot in the last many years. That also, even music, right? There were times when it felt like a chore, especially when I was growing up. It was somewhat forced upon me by my mom to go, learn mridangam and all of that. Not saying this with resentment, but at that time I didn't really enjoy it. And then when I got into college and got connected with Rough Records and started playing drums, that brought joy to that part of my life, right? And then, life happens. But over the last 5, 6 years, I've reconnected with it in a way that brings a lot of joy to my life. So to me, really, ultimately, all of these things, food, activities, if they're not joyful, we're not going to do it. If we feel the pressure to do it because of some other outcome, then it's, at least for me, that has never, I've never found it sustainable. So, yeah, that's really.
It's good to hear a very different perspective, and I think that's probably going to be our, for the rest of us. I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll be more confused than before for the rest of us, because
I was afraid of that.
Jijo's story, your story, and now we and Shamla, and then we yet to hear Bijoy and Simi, and by the end of it, we are all I think that's the thing. We have to make our own choices at the end of the day. What works for us and what doesn't work for us, we have to decide that.
For sure.
Thanks so much, Raj. Be around because there will be questions, and we want to keep the questions for a later time. Bijoy?
So I think I kind of like followed to a lot of like the similar stories that everybody is kind of saying. There's something around 44, 45 where you start to like recognize your frailty and that at some point you're going to be gone. And just like, there's an end in sight that you can see. And I think one of the things that initially kind of I stood at like around 40, 45, it just felt like, there's a lot of studies that's been done on it. And it's like, they say like the most miserable when they've studied human beings, like around the most miserable you're around is around 47. And
Everything
you
is
go
around data. What is this, Vijay?
there's been studies on like, how people are happy by age. 47 is like the lowest point, and then you start picking up into your 50s. And why that's important is that, it kind of like, to me, as I thought about it, was like, you're you're not completely done with your working life. You're not completely near your retirement life. You're right there in the middle. You kind of are kind of dealing with a lot of like your physical capabilities and mental capabilities and not what they used to be. And you have to deal with that frailty that happens with that and kind of decide, what am I going to do about that? I think Shamala said, now she's doing Wordle. Uh, Raj has basically been an Ironman his whole life, so he kind of doesn't fit any of this. But I think Joe is kind of in the same ways. We're all kind of like hitting some point where we're like, things are not what they used to be. I'm not capable of what I used to be able to do. And I have a choice of deciding what I'm going to change in my life. Uh, and to me, like, it's always been like, it started from a wellness standpoint. I actually started more from a mental health standpoint. And I think because I think it's a recognition that there's been a lot of recognition that, the mind-body connection is pretty important. If how you feel about yourself has very significant wellness impacts. Raj kind of embodies a little bit of that, just kind of having passions outside work, having a healthy exercise routine. All of these kind of have big wellness impacts over and beyond like your actual physical effects, because it's been pretty well studied that as you feel and how you feel has big effects on it. I think one of the things that I read that was pretty interesting to me was like around the Harvard happiness study, which is like a study that's been going on since I think 1939. At this point, they are basically, and John F. Kennedy was one of the participants of it originally. They recruited like a bunch of like first year Harvard students and then a bunch of kids from like Boston neighborhood where, they're less well-to-do and they just track them over life. And now they're like actually tracking the kids of those original participants because it's gone on for so long. And one of the things that they really came out in that study is like when they've studied happiness, and happiness has big wellness effects, is that the number one source of happiness is relationships. And it's relationships with your immediate family. It's your having supportive relationships uh, around you. So like friends, people you can reach out to, people you can talk to about things, and having that kind of community in place. And, and I think one of the things, especially being in the US and kind of like, removing it, like there's a common kind of thing is we all went through a parenting phase where, we're all kind of like very focused on let's get these things done. I think one of the things that does fall by the wayside is an active focus on the relationships in your house and the relationships outside your house. And the I think when I started getting around the 50s, like, it's just that just kind of reading some of the literature on this and kind of like, it's like, you need to really focus on that, especially as when you come to the US, it's a very individualistic society. People don't necessarily have the time for you. You have to make time for them. As opposed to like in India, it's like everybody's in your business. Everybody and their mother wants to know what's happening with you, and there's there's an inherent community there. In the US, it's like, if you let yourself, you can live in your house. And people who do that, there's a huge, mental health component to it because of the lack of relationships that are in place. So for me, that has been like a key kind of thinking point is like, what are the relationships I want in my life? What are the relationships I want to invest in my life? How do I change? How do I change the things that I need to do? Because without that underlying kind of relationship component, it's very difficult for you to have wellness. Um, the second thing that I started like deal with, I had a lot of sleep issues. So I have sleep apnea. I had a period of time where I was just like uh, having very great difficulty in the middle of the day, kind of functioning, focusing, kind of thinking about things, and did a lot of like sleep studies. Got to the point that I have sleep apnea. Gone through a journey of like figuring out what are the things I can do from a sleep standpoint. And I find like the literature on it's pretty clear. Sleep has very huge effects. It has huge effects on your wellness. It has huge effects on your overall health, your immune health. It has huge effects on your weight gain. If you are trying to lose weight, one of the major things you can do is basically to make sure you have enough sleep, because you lose actually more weight while you're sleeping than pretty much anything because your body kind of slows down. There's no consumption of any calories, so you actually lose more weight during your sleep than you do during any period of time. The other thing that as I've gone older, is a little bit more focus on the nutrition. I mean, Jojo spoke about it. Uh, I had a lot of issues with um, gut health and really kind of the metabolic side of things, kind of figuring out, what, how does my body process food? As you get older, it processes in a very dysfunctional way, and figuring out what are the things that work for me, what are the things that don't, and really kind of having what you just said, and I'm very much an experimenter of myself. I listen to everybody and listen to a lot of like the thought around it, but ultimately I'm a believer that we're all individual snowflakes, and we have to figure out, what works for us. Now you should definitely take inputs in from various people, but I've kind of progressively kind of changed different aspects of it. I did go for a period of time going through intermittent fasting, going about 10 hours. Uh, I got to the point where I figured out that, that's not necessarily good for me because what I found was that I was very tired. And as I started to recognize that, it's not the best thing for me. It might be great for Jijo, and I, appreciate the OMAD kind of philosophy. We all have to kind of figure out, is the diet that we have and the nutrition we're having working for us? And Abdul, you kind of asked, what are the metrics? I think you should pay attention. My opinion is you should pay attention to your some metrics, and that's good. But at the root of it, you need to have that real awareness of yourself and kind of like spending time to say, how is my stomach feeling? How's my head feeling? How's my body feeling? How am I feel? I mean, and you have some knowledge of like what you are feeling, and it's to me it has a lot of been about like changing things and seeing how I'm feeling about myself and what's changing there. So, I mean, I went to intermittent fasting and I pretty much left it after a while because it's figuring out like, I was just getting tired. Uh, and my body needs some nutrition in the morning. Uh, and that may be different for somebody else, but for me, it was the right thing. Uh, so I've changed that I am eating in the morning. I am in the afternoon. I may or may not eat, depending on, if I'm hungry or not. And in the evening, I try to have a meal early. I played around a lot with what kind of foods come into. I went to a very low carb phase, and whatever over time I figured out is that I need the carb energy too. Uh, and you have to determine whether carbs give you energy, and it's the fastest way to get blood sugar into your blood and get you kind of moving. So the question is, it, as you as a person, do you need carbs? And the question is, what kind of carbs? To Jojo's point, I think you want to get more healthy carbs. But at a point in time, I was even like completely anti-rice. But over the last 8 months, I've added rice back in. And I can see that, when I have rice, it has energy effects on me. And I can see that it's kind of pushed my energy up. So, that's a change I've made.
Also, Bijoy, don't you think that white rice to us, all of us who actually grew up with white rice, in our childhood, it's a memory food also, right? There
It
is
is.
there's a huge memory associated with it.
It's a
A
wellness
comfort. It's a
aspect.
comfort. Yeah, yeah.
There is a wellness aspect to food, right? Food is as much about, the feeling it gets evokes. I mean, as in Indian culture, food is the way people show love. Food is the way we kind of interact with each other. It's a communal feeling. We get together and eat. It's as much about,
Yeah.
the nutrition into your body, but it's also about, wellness, community. There's a lot more to food than just calories in and
Correct.
calories out, for sure. Um, the other part that I am experimenting a lot around um, protein intake, because I'm trying to change and increase my protein intake. Uh, Part of what is I've been looking at the types of proteins I eat, how my body digests it. Definitely as I've gotten older, I do start to feel like red meat is challenging. It's challenging for my body to process. Uh, so it's like, but I am a red meat eater. So it's like, it is a little bit difficult for someone like me to just say, uh, Raj can cut it and not have a problem with it. I need the beef. Like, so it's like, you kind of decide, how you want to like intake some of the, but I think what I've over time kind of figured the two things that I've tracked my intake for a while and looked at, what am I eating? The two areas where I felt like I'm not getting enough is one around protein and the other is fiber. Those are the two things that I don't get enough in my diet. So part of that has been to kind of change my diet to kind of include more of that. Now add a lot of chia seed. Chia seeds is now my go-to from a fiber standpoint because I figured it's like the easiest way to kind of get fiber into you. And it's the other part of it from a nutrition standpoint has been looking at a lot of supplements. So I have a long list of supplements that I am kind of experimenting with. Part of it is similar to food. I add them, see how I feel about them. At some points, I stop them to see how it changes if there are any changes that observe, and then kind of move from back and forth on that. So, I'm taking like things like ashwagandha, which I find is useful from a mental health and a mental cognition standpoint. I am also taking Triphala, which is like really helpful from a digestion standpoint. Multiple things. I won't go through all the details there, but there's a lot of supplementation that I'm experimenting with. I think the other aspect from a overall mental health standpoint is that um, similar to Shamala, I've also one of the things that can help you as you get older from a cognition standpoint is to completely challenge your brain in a way. And language is one of the biggest challenges you can put your brain because you have to use both the left and the right hemisphere because it doesn't reside just in one hemisphere. So one of the things I'm working on right now is trying to learn Spanish. And Sarah has actually joined me in that. She's dropped off. So we're doing it together, trying to see if we can pick up Spanish. Some of you on the call may think, he can't speak Malayalam very well. I don't know. Why is he learning Spanish? But anyway, that's beside the point. But I think overall, when I think about health, I think it's you have to focus on mental health. You have to focus on the things that bring you joy and happiness in your life. And you have to focus on building the right relationships and the right community that you need around you. And that includes not just your spouse. I think you need the community around you that that helps you, and having a community that helps you in various, uh, at we all have different points where we're down, and we all need help when that's down. I think nutrition is a huge aspect of it for me, and it's kind of like it's a continuous experiment for me. Sleep has been it's something that I started to recognize only recently, and that has huge effects, and it has huge effects personally on me, from a mental health, from a wellness, from a weight. The other aspect from a fitness standpoint, I focused on there's been a recognition that you need cardio health. So you need to push your heart to function at a high level, your heart and your lungs, so that think about a full out sprint. So one of the things I'm doing is like trying to like push my VO2 max higher, because that from a lot of studies have shown like it's the single highest thing you can do to like increase your health span. When they've studied it, people with higher VO2 maxes live longer and more healthier than any other intervention you can do. I think it's the equivalent of uh, like twice the effect of smoking or something like that, from a health standpoint.
No, I did
Uh,
not get that, Vijay. What is it?
so so just do what Raj does. I mean, pretty much that's what you should do. If you can be like Raj, he's going to live a long life. He's going to live a long health span because he pushes his hearts and lungs as hard as they possibly
Okay,
can,
okay.
and that has very huge health effects.
Okay.
Uh, and he did it just because he wants to, but I aspire to do it because it will have huge health effects on me. The other thing is what Jijo was talking about from a strength training. As you get older, the science is kind of like pretty clear is that what you start to lose is muscle mass, and the lack of strength is kind of very important. Literally, as you get older, you become frail because you lose muscle. So you do absolutely nothing. One of the things you do is you lose muscle. So strength training is going to be important just so that you retain the muscle you already have. And I'm not a women's health expert, but the literature I've seen is basically it's actually a bigger problem for women than it's for men. Because women start off with lower lean muscle mass than men, so there's less to lose there. So if you start losing it, that's one of the things with aging that kind of happens. So, and the other aspect from a strength training standpoint, it has huge effects on like your basal metabolic rate. So it's like when I've completely gone away from like looking at weight. Weight is not a health goal for me. I don't care what my weight is. Uh, I'm looking at it to say, as any of the interventions I'm doing having an effect on my overall health? I'm more concerned about the weight I carry in the middle of my stomach than I am of my overall weight, because that's one of the things I've definitely studied is that if you have a gut, that is very unhealthy, because what you're doing there is carrying visceral fat on your liver, on your kidney, on the organs that matter, and that has pretty strong health effects. If you carry weight in your legs, in your face, it's not good, but it's not particularly problematic. Uh, so from a weight standpoint, I'm actually more interested in reducing my waistline than in the pounds I'm carrying. So that's one of the focuses that I have and then overall from a health goal, I'm focused on like these are the things, the interventions and adaptations that I want to make, and I'm constantly looking at and trying to say, what changes do I see? And it's really bringing that full body awareness to how you are feeling, how it's make and I think because a lot of people maybe just kind of function, we just go through the day, it's kind of like whatever happens. We don't pay enough attention, like focused attention into ourselves, what's our energy levels? How are you feeling? What's going on with you right now? What changes are you seeing? Are you tired? And bringing that true awareness into how you're feeling, I think is as much important a metric than any other Fitbit or anything else you choose to like use. Um, I think the other aspect for me has been like, um, just thinking, I mean, just reading up on a lot of this. I I do aspire at the end of it to have a healthy life. Um, I'm less concerned about like living longer, but I would like to, as a role model, I said, my father-in-law is a good role model. If I can have that level of experience at 76, 80, and be functional at that level, cognitively, physically, uh, that is more important than whether uh, a doctor is able to like push my lifespan 2 years by putting me on a ventilator or whatever it is. It's really kind of that recognition of the difference between living healthily and living longer. Because I think the medical profession, unfortunately, has been more about
Yeah.
keeping people alive for longer versus, are you having that quality of life? So I went all over the place.
No, absolutely. No. The points you've made are so relevant, and thanks for sharing all of it with us. And I'm sure we'll have more to actually ask you also. Yeah, Raj?
No, I just wanted to go back to your talk about raising heart rate. So I don't do that. Yes, it depends on specific training. Doing high intensity workouts, it's not something that I do very often. There's at least in the endurance training circles, there's this 80-20 rule that we talk about. So 80% of the time you're working less, it's only 20% of your time that you are working at above 80% of your effort. Right. So even if you look at a whole 4-6 month training plan, that's how that would be structured.
That's a good point. I mean, I spoke about the VO2 max because that's a focus for me right now.
For
But
sure.
you're absolutely right. Walking is just as important as sprinting, and any kind of like a regular kind of exercise where your movement is as just as important as
Yeah.
just, I mean, you need to your point, I mean, you need zone two cardio just as much or as importantly as you need zone 4 and zone 5.
Sure, it all in the end depends on if you have specific goals with something that you're trying to accomplish. I just didn't want people to walk away thinking that, oh yeah,
No.
once
No,
again,
good
that's
point.
all.
No, you
Yeah.
need both. You need the walking and you need the sprinting, is what you're
So
saying.
great. So Simi, you ready with, yes, Simi. Thanks for joining us on this.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry, I had to move because everybody's waking up right now. So anyway, so I'll keep it brief in the interest of time. So my journey, I mean, when I moved to the US, I came to California, right? So everybody around me was just very healthy. Like everybody's running, eating, like, yoga, blah, 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 right? So I got into clean eating very early on, which means like I needed to know like what is in my food. I don't want so my kids hate it. Like they say, our pantry is only ingredients. They have no snacks, right? So like when they grew up, their dream was to drink soda at 18, like when they leave the house. So it was that. But then I realized there has to be a balance, right? So we adjusted that so when I pick something, I always did, relatively healthy. So, but then so this journey of health has been more based on bad outcomes. So, because that's all I did for a long time. Um, and part of it is also because my kids, I found out that they all have ADHD. I don't know if you have hyperactive kids. They were very hyper, and I wasn't at all aware of this whole field of mental health. So that was one journey. And so, I realized that they needed to be in very, very aggressive sports to get that energy out, and it makes them feel so much better. So that's like how like the bad outcome like changed, things. But somewhere along, like when I was 38, I started getting really severe sleep issues. Like I could only sleep like 2-3 hours a day. And it was like, in hindsight, it was hormone related, like women's health, what Shaimala was talking about. But I started like doing tests and I just found out that I have insulin resistance, and I was allergic to, or my, the gluten like protein was like, I had sensitivity to that. So I always had a low carbohydrate diet, right? So that's kind of how I started switching to more of a low carb diet. And of course, I always walked and stuff like that. But the second bad outcome, and it really improved my sleep, like just cutting that carbs out of the thing, doing yoga, just because I needed to, like that whole calming your mind thing was important, and also exercise, right? But then the second bad outcome came like a few years ago. Just sitting at the desk for long periods of time, I started having neck. And I mean, I always was active because I think I also have ADHD. I needed to keep moving. So sitting at the desk for, well, the outcome was that my shoulder, my neck, I just started having shooting pain down my shoulder and my left arm. So, I went to the ortho, did physio, and finally there was no relief, right? So eventually I said, okay, this is my last thing. I'm going to try the chiropractor. I don't know if you guys know, it's like, I don't know what the equivalent in India is, but
It is a chiropractic.
so yeah, chiropractor.
We do have them here.
Okay, so they found out. So they took my X-rays and they found out that my neck the spine, the cervical spine is like, it's very straight. There's no curve.
Curve.
And I think most people who sit at the computer have that problem. And so when you don't have that curve, your neck, the spine cannot handle that much weight, right, of your head. So it starts to disintegrate and calcify and stuff like that, right? So their solution was, so they actually diagnosed the solution. So just because we are sitting all the time in front of the computer, and I'm sure my position was terrible, right? I'm just sitting there for hours upon hours and looking at the screen, right? And so they said, because my pec muscles are just like, this is typical for all workers. So you're just leaning forward. And so this becomes tight, the front, and then the back is all stretched and it presses against the nerves. So eventually, through treatments, and they put me on an exercise routine where I had to strengthen my back. So my back is stronger than my pec muscles. So you're overall sitting up straight. So that's where I started my exercise routine, going to the gym. And there was another bigger picture where women in general, one of the best ways to prevent osteoporosis is to do weight-bearing exercises, right? So, I mean, heart health is very important, but also weight-bearing exercises to prevent osteoporosis. So those are so right now I have to do it and since then, my back is much stronger. The pain has completely gone away. So that's kind of my second bad outcome journey. And then just the past, I've always done a low carb diet, right? But the past few years, when I have my blood test, one of the cholesterol marker is a little off. So the doctor did the CT scan and the lipoprotein, but she said, your diet is very personalized, and that's what I learned too. You either do genetic tests to figure out what is personalized to you, what works for you, or you experiment like everybody else was talking about. So so she put me on a very low carbohydrate diet because she thinks that because I have insulin resistance and my cholesterol is a little bit off. So my body doesn't metabolize the carbs like some other people's. So that's kind of the health part of it based on the outcomes. But I think as the kids have grown and, I think just the stress of having 3 teenagers and getting them, I think all those things play a role in your overall health. And so I've realized that I need to compartmentalize these things and find my own, everybody was talking about, you need to find your own identity and what you what makes you joyful. And so for me, definitely must exercise, building community has been so important, taking care of your spiritual health, mental health. And then most importantly, the kids are almost gone. And so, your relationship with your spouse, what are you going to do the next phase of life, your aging parents, all those are factors, right? So, and then I've just taken on I read a lot. So I'm part of a book club, which is great community. And then I've also started to pick up the piano again, which, I started early on, but then, so those are the kind of things I think you need to keep your mental acuity alive. And then sleep. So practicing good sleep hygiene for me has been so important. I have to shut off my devices because it's so addictive. Even you see the kids, and on the devices, but you're the same. Once you get scooped in, it's the same thing, right? So those are the things that I had to change in my routine. Oh, and then I didn't prepare anything, but oh yeah, I have to. And one thing I found very helpful is getting like a bi-weekly massage for your skeletal system. It is because you don't stretch very well. Like even if you exercise, you don't really stretch. And that makes a huge difference in like the aches and pains when you wake up. And so that's kind of like something that I do without like lifting. That's all I have to say, but I know I have to run off too soon.
Okay. So I think, before we sort of, do we do questions first? Or, I mean, some observations which I had on listening to everybody is, while each of the speakers who shared today have stressed on, some have stressed on very objective and quantitative and well-defined measurements, etc. Some have taken it a little more liberally, like if you do what feels good for you, and it has been quite subjective that way. But I think some of the common things which are coming out is that yes, exercise, yes to mental health and well-being, yes to good sleep, yes to nutrition, yes to happiness and joy. I think these are all non-negotiable when it comes to the overall wellness. And it's not just fitness. Fitness is, I think, just a subset of what wellness is. Fitness could at best take care of certain physical aspects and certain things, but the overall wellness of an individual would take all these things into consideration: your physical fitness, your sleep, your happiness quotient, your relation, which can come from different things like relationships and picking up an instrument like you did, sleep. And I'm actually, personally, I think it's great that all of you shared your personal stories, because there's so much you can learn from personal stories, and not merely somebody studied, A did a study there and B did a study there. And Simi, Bijoy, Raj, Jijo, and Shamla have all shared their personal stories. And so it was very relatable, I think, to what each of you said, because while we may not have the rest of us may not have everything, but we may have something from, something which Simi has faced, and something which Jijo has faced, and something which Shamla has faced, and we have to figure out how it works for us. I think that's probably the takeaway. Any questions?
What I feel is that, the people who have spoken here are people who have taken this very seriously. Okay. Yeah. And people who have shared, they've been, kind enough to come and explain and share. And this is a good thing for all others who, like people like me, who don't do anything for health at all. So for me, it is sort of understanding, listening, learning. And also it's time for all of us to look at it. And there's a lot of learning that has come through. This is my overall feedback from what I observed. And these people who have spoken people are at the highest level, so it doesn't mean that everybody has to be at that level. We all have to aspire to sort of do something about this, or we will be able to, you'll be paying more visits to doctors or have a very poor quality life. The last thing that we want is to have a poor quality life as we age. And that's the main focus I think we should have.
Well, one thing, this is Jijo, one thing I would add is also people like, at least on my side, I'm not going to speak for Bijoy and people like that, but I'm definitely open to helping people, anyone who's interested, go on a personalized journey, right? So just contact me. I'll set aside some time and we can go on the journey together. So feel like you have a partner you can reach out to. And I'm not, selling success or anything like that. We'll go on the journey and see where it ends. But the personalization aspect, I'm available.
I think it's important that everybody goes for a health checkup and keep, like that. I asked about the measurement mechanism, and also the self-awareness. There are people who have never, like, I've never gone, or I'm very infrequent in doing my health checkups and things like that. So that's also important to actually keep track of that and try to put an effort towards it. And we should
Can
encourage.
I mention something?
Yes.
Vahid, to your point, for the first time, the doctor wrote me like the CT scan, that's a calcification in your vascular system, right? And so when I went to the hospital, like for the scan, the technician told me they are writing scans for younger and younger and younger people because, especially after COVID, because apparently COVID attacks your vascular system. So it might be something that is helpful for like most people to request the doctor to do in that from that perspective, especially if you're going to like for us in the US, because of insurance issues, you can go to India and do it. But that's something that I was surprised when the guy said that.
Yeah. So this regular checkups, like Wahid mentioned, I think they're so important. Regular checkups, getting your blood work done every year, which Jijo mentioned. For women, I think getting your pap smear and mammograms every year are a must. There is no compromise after 50. It should not have been compromised even after 48, 45, but I think after 50, it's totally not to be compromised. A mammogram and a pap smear test every year is the least you can do for yourselves, I think, for our own health. And then whatever other tests which are common to all, like for example, some may have a ortho issue, some may have a neuro issue, and then I personally, for example, have a neuro issue, and I have to do an MRI every year. So you have to do it. It's a the measurements are important for the doctor to figure out how you are and what you are doing, what your health is. So these not to compromise on any of the tests which you have to do. I think it's very important.
And then can I also add, like regarding exercise, I think it's important to do what you like.
Yeah, absolutely. You should enjoy that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
very important.
And I think it also, like, even if you like it for a while, you may not like it forever. So like changing things also really helps keep you motivated.
And if you find out an exercise which you really enjoy, please stick to it. Stick to it and do it. Don't let go of it.
Yeah.
It could be anything. It could be yoga, running, whatever I'm saying.
Just I think what they said is raising your heart rate for 20 minutes a day is very important. Another important thing I forgot to mention is after your meal, like taking a 10-minute walk really reduces your insulin resistance, like right after, because yeah.
Absolutely. We do that. We do that I do that every evening with my wife. In fact, we use it as a decompress mechanism where we can talk about each other's day. Because during the day we are all in meetings and things like that, right? We never get to talk to each other. So yeah, that gets in the good zone
that's
too.
that's exactly what we do too. Right after dinner, we both just go out because we needed to get caught up too.
That's nice.
Anybody else wants to comment? There are others who are listening in.
Yeah. Just one point. So we saw a set of people who are like very aware and very strict with their regimen and everything. Maybe there are others who are not aware at all. For them, this is a good starting point. But are there people who are aware and not able to stick to something consistency? That
we have
kind
one
of
person
problem.
in our.
I'm like.
There's another person. I think Wahid is also like that. He knows everything but doesn't
do
anything.
No. He doesn't do test itself. He is not.
No, I don't. No, I'm not consistent.
He's lucky.
He's not consistent at all.
Gene.
I think one of the things to keep in mind is like you have to give yourself a little bit of grace. No one gets this exactly right. It is a journey, and you're going to fall off a lot of.
Vijay.
Okay.
So it's like I mean, one of the things that's definitely been is like I get it wrong a lot. I mean, I plan to do something, it doesn't happen. I mean, that's That's also
It's
part of the
it's a
journey, right?
journey. Yeah, it's a journey. It's a journey, and that's why then everybody were telling, I'm like, I know all these things. I mean, in theory,
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
I know everything. I've done all what you said at different points of time, but never consistent
I
with
know,
anything.
Smita, that is so true. And I think for most of us like me, it's when you have bad outcomes that you finally
Yes, Simi, you're so right. And that should not be the case actually, though
it
that
should
is,
not be the
yeah, but that
case.
is the
Yeah.
driver. But that is the driver for, that's what drives a large part of whatever it is.
Santosh.
Yeah.
Santosh.
Yeah.
I mean, I
Santosh
think that
JK.
the other part is, Stephanie, we're all 50, right? This is kind of a crucial age that will guide your health and wellness all the way to the 70s and 80s. This is a material kind of time. This is a time where you can change your strength, your heart health. There are various things you can do. What you do now matters. And it may not be completely clear, but it does matter a lot.
Santosh.
Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing your experience, right? അപ്പോൾ എല്ലാവരും ഇംഗ്ലീഷിൽ സംസാരിച്ചു. ഈ കോളിലുള്ള എല്ലാവർക്കും മലയാളം അറിയാം, അതുകൊണ്ട് ഞാൻ ഡെലിബറേറ്റ്ലി മലയാളം യൂസ് ചെയ്യണേ. ഇപ്പൊ എൻ്റെ കേസിൽ 35 വയസ്സിൽ ആക്ച്വലി എനിക്ക് റിഫ്ലക്സ് റിഡക്ഷനും ഓവറോൾ എനർജി ലെവൽ റിഡക്ഷനും ഒക്കെ ഐ സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് നോട്ടീസിങ്. പ്രോബ്ലി ബിക്കോസ് ഞാൻ കണ്ടിന്യൂസ് ആയിട്ട് എന്തെങ്കിലും സ്പോർട്ടിൽ ഇൻവോൾവ് ആയിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ അറൌണ്ട് 37 or സംതിങ് ഇയേഴ്സ് എനിക്ക് ഒരു ഷോൾഡർ ഇഞ്ചുറി കാരണം ക്രിക്കറ്റ് കളിക്കാൻ പറ്റാത്ത ഒരു സിറ്റുവേഷനായി. ഇപ്പം ഈ റിയലൈസേഷൻ കാരണം ഐ സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് റണ്ണിങ്. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് എന്ത് പറ്റിയെന്ന് വെച്ച് കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ വെൻ ഐ വാസ് ഇൻ ബാംഗ്ലൂർ, ഞാൻ ആക്ച്വലി റണ്ണിങ്ങിൽ എൻഗേജ്ഡ് ആയി ഇൻ ബാംഗ്ലൂർ. ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഇപ്പം റണ്ണിങ് സീൻ ഇസ് ആക്ച്വലി റിയലി ബിക്കം സോളിഡ് ഇൻ ഇന്ത്യ. അപ്പോൾ ഐ സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് എ റണ്ണിങ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഇൻ ബാംഗ്ലൂർ. പ്രൈമറിലി എൻ്റെ ഒരു പേഴ്സണൽ ഒബ്ജക്റ്റീവ് ആയിരുന്നു. ബിക്കോസ് ഈ സ്മിത ചോദിച്ചതുപോലെ സെൽഫ് അവെയർ ആവുന്നതിൽ കാര്യമില്ല, യു ഹാവ് ടു എക്സിക്യൂട്ട് ഓൾസോ. ലോഡ് ഓഫ് അമച്വർ ഓർ എലീറ്റ് അത്ലീറ്റ്സിൻ്റെ അടുത്ത് ചോദിച്ചു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ അവരുടെ സക്സസിന്റെ മന്ത്രം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് ഡൂയിങ് ദ ബോറിംഗ് തിങ് കൺസിസ്റ്റന്റ്ലി. ദിവസം എണീച്ച് 5 കിലോമീറ്റർ ഓടുക എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് it can get monotonous, boring as an activity, right? പക്ഷേ എല്ലാവർക്കും കൺസിസ്റ്റന്റ് ആയിട്ട് ട്രെയിൻ ചെയ്യാൻ they don't get to that mindset. അപ്പോൾ having a community where you can actually make each other accountable makes it lot more easier. അപ്പം ഒരു റണ്ണിങ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ആകുമ്പം സ്കെഡ്യൂൾഡ് ഇവന്റ്സ് കാണും. വഹീദിന് ദുബായ് ക്രീക്ക് സ്ട്രൈഡേഴ്സ് വേണമെങ്കിൽ സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്യാം. വൺ ഓഫ് ദ ടോപ്പ് റണ്ണിങ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ്സ് അക്രോസ് ദ വേൾഡ്. ലോട്ട് ഓഫ് ഗുഡ് റണ്ണേഴ്സ്. അപ്പൊ അതില് ദർ ഇസ് അനദർ തിങ്. നമ്മുടെ ബാച്ച്മേറ്റ് ആയ അഭയൻ ഒരു ട്രിവാൻഡ്രത്ത് ഒരു റണ്ണിങ് ക്ലബ്ബ് സ്റ്റാർട്ട് ചെയ്തു. പക്ഷെ ഫോർ വെറൈറ്റി ഓഫ് റീസൺസ് ഇറ്റ് കുഡൻ ഗോ ഓൺ. പക്ഷെ ദ കീ ഓഫ് സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ് എനിത്തിങ് ന്യൂ ഇസ് ടു മേക്ക് ഷുവർ ദാറ്റ് യു ആർ ഇൻവെസ്റ്റഡ് ഇൻ ഇറ്റ് ആൻഡ് യു മേക്ക് ഇറ്റ് എ കണ്ടിന്യൂസ് തിങ്. അതുകൊണ്ട് ഒരു സൊസൈറ്റിയാണ് ബിൽഡ് ചെയ്തിരിക്കുന്നത് നമ്മള്. ഇപ്പൊ ഈ അടുത്ത വീക്കെൻഡില് വിൽ ഹാവ് 6 വേൾഡ് മാരത്തൺ മേജേഴ്സ്. ആ ലെവലിലേക്ക് നമ്മൾ ഇമ്പ്രൂവ് ചെയ്തു. അപ്പൊ അതൊരു ഗ്രാറ്റിഫൈങ് തിങ് ആണ്. പക്ഷെ ദ പോയിന്റ് ഇസ് അതിൽ കയറിയത് കൊണ്ട് I could actually realize that any sport is a combination of, is a good balance of nutrition, adequate sleep, strength training, flexibility, right?
മലയാളം
അതാണ് അതിന്റെ നീ ഇതിനെ തർജ്ജമ ചെയ്തതാ. ഫ്ലെക്സിബിലിറ്റി എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ആസ്പെക്ട് കൂടുതൽ ഇമ്പോർട്ടന്റ് ആവുന്നു. ഇപ്പൊ സിമി ടച്ച് ചെയ്തില്ലേ, നെക്ക് പെയിൻ പലർക്കും ലോവർ ബാക്ക് ഇഷ്യൂ പ്രോബ്ലി പീപ്പിൾ ഹാവ് സ്റ്റാർട്ടഡ് ഗെറ്റിംഗ്, റൈറ്റ്? ഇരുന്ന് പണി ചെയ്യുമ്പോൾ ആക്ച്വലി വാട്ട് ഐ ഹാവ് റിയലൈസ്ഡ് ഇസ് ഹിപ്പും ഗ്ലൂട്ട്സും ആ റീജൻ വീക്കായി ആക്ച്വലി ലോവർ ബാക്ക് സ്റ്റാർട്ടിങ് ടു ഹേർട്ട്. എത്ര പേർക്ക് ഉണ്ടെന്ന് അറിയില്ല. ഇപ്പം ഈ പ്രായത്തിൽ എൻ്റെ റിയലൈസേഷൻ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ, പണ്ടായിരുന്നെങ്കിൽ ആഴ്ചയിൽ 3 ദിവസം ഓടും, അത് കഴിഞ്ഞിട്ട് കുറച്ച് ഫ്ലെക്സിബിലിറ്റി എക്സസൈസ് ഒക്കെ അന്ന് തന്നെ ചെയ്യും, ആൻഡ് ബാക്കിയുള്ള ദിവസം എന്ത് ചെയ്യാലും കുഴപ്പമില്ല, ഐ കുഡ് സ്റ്റിൽ ഗോ ബാക്ക് ടു 3 days ഓഫ് റണ്ണിങ്. ഇപ്പൊ ഞാൻ റിയലൈസ് ചെയ്തെന്ന് പറഞ്ഞു കഴിഞ്ഞാല് എന്നും ഒരു എക്സസൈസ് റെജിമെൻ ഇല്ലാന്നുണ്ടെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ പാടാണ്. എന്തെങ്കിലും you should have exercises that addresses different issues that you are facing. ഇപ്പൊ എൻ്റെ കേസിൽ ഇപ്പോൾ ഉള്ളത് ലോവർ ബാക്ക് ഇഷ്യൂ ഉണ്ട്, ലോവർ ബാക്ക് ആൻഡ് നെക്ക് ഇഷ്യൂ. അത് എനിക്ക് തോന്നുന്നു ഓക്യുപേഷണൽ ഹസാർഡാണ്, ഇരുന്ന് പണി ചെയ്ത് എൻ്റെ വർഷങ്ങളായിട്ടുള്ള എൻ്റെ ഒരു എഫക്റ്റ്. ഓബ്വിയസ്ലി ബാക്കിയുള്ള സഡൻ ആയിട്ട് ഇപ്പം വർക്കൗട്ട് ചെയ്യാനായിട്ട് ഒരാഴ്ച പോയില്ല, അടുത്ത ദിവസം ഒരാഴ്ച കഴിഞ്ഞ് പോവാണെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ഐ കൻ ഫീൽ ഡിലേഡ് ഓൺസെറ്റ് ഓഫ് മസ്കുലർ whatever, റൈറ്റ്, ഡോംസ് എന്ന് പറയുന്ന സാധനം. അതൊക്കെ ഒരു 4-5 days കൂടുതൽ നിൽക്കുന്നു. സോ ഓവറോൾ കൺസിസ്റ്റൻസി എന്ന് പറയുന്നതാണ് വാട്ട് ഐ ഹവ് റിയലൈസ്ഡ് ഇസ് ദ മോസ്റ്റ് ഇമ്പോർട്ടൻറ്റ് തിങ്. ആൻഡ് ഇത് കൺസിസ്റ്റന്റ് ആയിട്ട് ചെയ്യണമെന്നുണ്ടെങ്കിൽ ജോയിൻ എ ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഇസ് മൈ സിൻസിയർ അഡ്വൈസ്. ഇപ്പം എല്ലാവരും സെൽഫ് മോട്ടിവേറ്റഡ് ഒന്നും അല്ല. നമ്മൾ സ്ട്രാവയിൽ ഒരു സീരി 94ന്റെ ഒരു ഗ്രൂപ്പ് ഉണ്ട്. സോ ഇഫ് യു ജോയിൻ ദാറ്റ് ഗ്രൂപ്പ്, whenever you train and upload your data, it goes there. ബാക്കിയുള്ളവർ കാണും. It kind of inspires each other, right? അപ്പോ അത്രേ ഉള്ളൂ. എൻ്റെ journey has been like that.
One thing I just want to share. There is a book called Atomic Habits. It's by James Clear. For the people who are like really struggling to like form habits, it's a book on like how to kind of create habits that last. And it basically goes through the science forming. What are the things? How do you make easy things difficult? All the things that you need to do. If you haven't had a chance to read it, I definitely recommend it. It's very, if habit forming is kind of your problem, it's a great book to read.
Also, like JK was saying, like the community, I think motivates you could motivate you really well in a particular habit, right? A running community. Even COVID കഴിഞ്ഞ പിന്നെ like a lot of women and men, they're all into pickleball. I don't know if that is something in other countries, but like pickleball has become a pickup game, and it really is great community. It raises your heart rate. There are hiking groups. Like you could start your own like community that you like, or join a community that does an activity you like. It doesn't have to be running or swimming or whatever. But I think that community aspect really helps you motivated.
Yeah. So,
Raj, you want to say something?
Yeah. Raj.
കുഴപ്പമില്ല. ശാരീരിക വഴക്കോടെ നീ പറഞ്ഞു കേട്ടോ. ശാരീരികവും മാനസിക വഴക്കമാണ് എനിക്ക് ആവശ്യം. പക്ഷെ ഞാൻ ഒന്ന് പറയാൻ വന്ന ഈ ഹാബിറ്റിന്റെ കാര്യം പറയുമ്പോൾ, നമ്മൾ പല ആൾക്കാരും ഞാൻ റിട്ടയർ ചെയ്തതിനു ശേഷം അത് ചെയ്യാം ഇത് ചെയ്യാം എന്നുള്ളൊരു
പറ്റില്ല.
അത് ഞാൻ എൻ്റെ നിരീക്ഷണത്തിൽ കണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്, ആൾക്കാര് റിട്ടയർ ചെയ്യുന്നതിന് മുമ്പ് ചെയ്യുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങളൊക്കെ തന്നെ അവർ റിട്ടയർ ചെയ്തതിന് ശേഷവും ചെയ്യാൻ സാധ്യതയുള്ളൂ. അത് കഴിഞ്ഞ് പുതിയതായിട്ട് ഒരു ഹാബിറ്റ് ചില ആൾക്കാർ തുടങ്ങുമായിരിക്കും, പക്ഷെ അത് വളരെ ചുരുക്കമാണ്. അപ്പം എൻ്റെ അഭിപ്രായം എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ, എന്താണ് ചെയ്യാൻ നമ്മൾ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്, ഭാവിയിൽ ചെയ്യാൻ ഉദ്ദേശിക്കുന്നത്, അത് ഇപ്പോഴേ തുടങ്ങുക. അത് പുതിയ ഭാഷ പഠിക്കാനാണെങ്കിലോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പുതിയ ഒരു സംഗീതമാണ് എടുക്കണമെങ്കിലോ, അല്ലെങ്കിൽ യാത്ര പോവുക, ഇതൊക്കെ ഇപ്പോഴേ ചെയ്യുക. ചെറിയ തോതിൽ ചെയ്യുക, പക്ഷെ അതിന്റെ അളവ് കൂടാം. നമുക്ക് വേറെ ജോലി ഇല്ലാതാകുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് അതൊക്കെ കൂടുതൽ ചെയ്യാൻ സാധ്യതയുണ്ട്. അല്ലെങ്കിൽ പെട്ടെന്നൊരു സുപ്രഭാതത്തിൽ നമ്മൾ ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നില്ല. മതിയാടെ അത്ര
I also think like doing it and then increasing it over time. I think if you're too ambitious, you can't sustain like ambition for that long. It's like, are you doing enough, just enough that you can start a habit, and then are you expanding the habit over time?
പക്ഷെ സ്മിത പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ, പക്ഷെ സ്മിത, എനിക്ക് I don't have plans of retirement. So personally, retire ചെയ്യാൻ പോകുന്നില്ല.
It's a huge change in whatever you're doing. It need not be called retirement, but നമ്മൾ ചെയ്തോണ്ടിരുന്ന ഒരു റുട്ടീനിന്ന് വളരെ മാറുമ്പല്ലേ ചീത്ത ഹാബിറ്റ് ആണ്.
But you already But you already retired, no, Monali?
ഞാൻ full പണ്ടേ retirement
That's why.
ആണ് പോയിക്കൊണ്ടിരിക്കുന്നത്. So shall we so I just wind up with two things. I know after all that we spoke, I know that when I'm going to get up after this 2 hours of sitting on the chair, I'm going to get up like it's all frozen, and that is in spite of doing all exercise and everything and nutrition and sleep and everything. So we have to recognize certain signals our body sends, and we have to figure out how we are going to take care of ourselves. I know I'm going to, be like one crutchy and
For any inspiration, I'm on my way to swimming,
Oh,
so I'll be swimming for an hour.
great. Second thing, I'm going to leave you all with a small exercise today, and I hope you can all do it. Do it after we finish the call. Please don't do it now. I don't think we want the video on. See, all of us wear track pants, trousers, pajamas, whatever, right? All of us have one dominant leg which we put in first, and another other leg which we put in second. So some of us put the right leg first, and after it is like halfway up, we put the left leg in. Or it could be vice versa. Some of us might put the left leg in first, and then after it is halfway in, we put the right leg in for your trousers, jeans, pajamas, whatever. Just reverse that order today and see how your mind works. Reverse the order, consciously reverse the order. Put your non-dominant leg first and put the dominant leg second. See how you struggle. See how your body responds to just that one small change in the way you wear your trousers or pajamas or tracksuit or shorts. Just do it, and it'll be interesting. I'm sure we can share that as well. Just try that. You will see how your different neurons get fired up so differently. Just do it. Do this exercise today. I'm leaving you all with this exercise. Bye. Good night,
Bye. Good night.
everybody.
Thanks.
See you all
See
soon.
you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yep.
Good night.
Good night.
Right.
Good night.